Hey everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Today we've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. Mark and Sarah had been together for 15 years. A long stretch. They'd built their life, weathered storms. Kids weren't in the picture because Sarah couldn't have them. But lately something felt off. The warmth had gone cold. The connection felt cut. Their intimacy had almost disappeared. Every time Mark tried to get close, Sarah would brush him off with some excuse. At first, Mark figured she was just stressed, maybe dealing with something private. But then the little things started to pile up. The constant texting, the way she'd giggle at her phone but go quiet when he walked in, the hushed calls, the sudden effort she put into her work outfits, the perfume she wore like she was meeting someone special every day. And the clearest sign of all? Her phone always face down, like she was hiding something. A bad feeling settled deep in Mark's gut, one he couldn't shake. He wasn't the suspicious type, but he wasn't a fool either. He needed proof. So he did what he thought anyone in his place would do. He hired a private investigator. 3 weeks later, Mark had everything he needed. The PI, an old-school guy named Harris, slid a thick folder across the table at a quiet coffee shop across town. "It's all in there," he said, stirring his coffee. Photos, messages, call logs, even some recordings. Mark's hands shook as he flipped through the pages. There was Sarah, his wife of 15 years, wrapped around another man. Her boss, holding hands at a restaurant, laughing at some private joke, kissing in his car. Harris cleared his throat. "That's not even the worst part." Mark looked up, his jaw tight. "There's more." Harris nodded grimly and pushed over a flash drive. "They're planning something. They're going on vacation next week, and they're going to tell you before they leave." He hesitated. "But you're not supposed to have a choice in the matter." "What do you mean?" Harris sighed and pulled out his phone, playing a recording. Mark instantly recognized Sarah's voice. "He's not going to like this. Mark still thinks we're a happy little family." Then Frank's voice joined in. "Then we make sure he plays along." Sarah again, her tone chilling. "If he resists, we have options." Frank responded, "Yeah, I mean, he's never laid a hand on me. But who's going to believe him if I say he did?" The world went quiet around Mark. His own wife was plotting to destroy him if he didn't go along with their plan. Harris lowered his phone. "If they go through with this, your life is over. Even if you clear your name, the damage will be permanent." Mark clenched his fists. "They think they have the upper hand." Harris met his gaze. "What are you going to do?" Mark exhaled slowly. "They don't know that I know." And that meant he could prepare. For the next 2 days, Mark worked on his plan. First, dark thoughts crossed his mind. He could kill them both, wipe them off the face of the earth. But that would land him in jail. And frankly, they weren't worth his life. He could wait for Frank, beat him senseless when he came to talk. Or he could take his rage out on Sarah. But he wasn't that kind of man. No, he had a better idea, one that wouldn't just hurt her. It would destroy her, give her what she wanted, and take away what she needed most. So Mark waited. Just as he expected, Sarah was waiting for him when he got home on Friday evening. She was dressed up, too much for a casual night in. Her makeup was perfect, her hair just right, and by the door next to her were 2 suitcases. Mark walked in, pretending to be clueless. "Going somewhere?" Sarah smiled, a little nervously. "No, I'm not leaving you, Mark." She took a step closer, her voice strangely gentle, like she was softening a blow. "I'm just going on a little vacation for a week." Mark tilted his head. "Oh? Where to?" Sarah licked her lips, hesitating for a split second before saying, "With Frank." Mark felt the air leave the room, but he kept his face neutral. "Frank? Your boss?" She nodded, her smile a little forced now. "Yes, you know him." Mark crossed his arms, raising an eyebrow. "Is this an office trip or something else?" Sarah let out a soft, breathy laugh, like she was relieved he wasn't making a scene. "Something else." Mark stayed silent, forcing her to say it. She sighed, then met his eyes, as if daring him to react. "We plan to have sex all week and just enjoy ourselves." Mark sat down on the sofa, leaning back as he looked at her. Sarah stood there, shifting slightly, like she expected him to explode. He didn't. He just watched. She took his silence as permission to continue. "Frank is a very nice man, Mark," she said, her voice trying to sound convincing. "He treats me with a lot of care. He listens to me, makes me feel special." She clasped her hands together, almost like she was trying to convince herself more than him. "And I decided, I need to repay his affection." Mark exhaled slowly, still saying nothing. "I'm also attracted to him," she admitted with a small smile, like it was some innocent confession instead of a betrayal. "And I need to get this out of my system. Once I do, I'll be fine. When I come back, I'll be the same as I am right now. Nothing will change between us." Mark tilted his head slightly, watching her with a detached amusement. She took another step forward. It's just a week of our lives, Mark. A week. Maybe I'll even learn some new tricks in bed. And I'll try them on you. She laughed lightly, as if this was supposed to make it better. Mark still didn't speak. Her smile wavered slightly, but she pressed on. It's just sex, Mark. Nothing emotional. We just want to explore. Mark let the silence hang between them before he finally spoke. Going on this vacation will mean the end of our marriage. If you do this, we are done. She blinked, but instead of backing down, she straightened. Then, with a slow, deliberate smirk, she tilted her head. If I don't do this, she said, her voice dripping with quiet threat, I will make sure you are done in society. I will ruin your reputation. She continued, crossing her arms. I will file for domestic abuse charges and wreck your life. No one will believe you, Mark. No one, because the law is on my side. You know how it works in this country. I will go on social media and cry and make you look like the villain. A slow smile crept onto Mark's lips. So, you plan to file false charges against me? You're willing to lie in court, just so you can have sex with another man who isn't your husband? She grinned. Yes. Mark leaned forward slightly, his eyes locked onto hers. Do you know what the punishment is for perjury? There are some laws that don't care about TikTok videos. She scoffed, waving a hand dismissively. I don't care. I'm going on this vacation. Mark chuckled, shaking his head. I know you will go, he said smoothly. That's why I'm not putting any effort into stopping you. He leaned back, his voice turning cold. I just told you the consequences of your actions. Sarah smirked. Okay then, so be it. I'm leaving for the week. She grabbed the handle of her suitcase and rolled it toward the door, stepping out. She glanced back at him with the same arrogance she had worn throughout their conversation. Be a nice boy and make sure the house is clean when I'm back. Mark smiled, slow and deliberate. Yeah, it'll be clean. Something about his tone must have made her pause. She turned slightly, her eyes narrowing for a fraction of a second. But then she shook her head, dismissing whatever doubt had crossed her mind. She picked up her bag, walked out, and Mark watched as she got into the waiting taxi and drove off. The moment she was out of sight, Mark pulled out his phone. Now, it was time to put his plan into action. First call, phone company. Hi. I need to cancel one of the lines on my account. The representative asked for verification, which Mark provided smoothly. Whose line are we canceling? My wife's. Sarah. Reason for cancellation? Mark smirked. She won't be needing it anymore. A few clicks on their end. And just like that, Sarah's iPhone was nothing more than an expensive brick. Second call, credit card company. Hello. I need to cancel all secondary cardholders on my account. Of course, sir. Which cardholder? Mark leaned back into the sofa. Sarah Smith. A few moments later, the representative confirmed that the cards were deactivated. No more shopping sprees, no more fancy dinners, and certainly no extravagant vacation expenses on his dime. Third call, Donald, the real estate agent. Donald picked up on the second ring. Mark, been waiting for your call. So what's the verdict? Time to sell the house, Mark said plainly. Figured as much, Donald said. Good news. I've got 2 serious buyers. They're eager to move fast. How soon can we finalize things? Give me 2 days, Mark said. I need to clean the house first. Donald chuckled. I hear you. I'll line everything up on my end. You sure about this? Mark exhaled. More sure than I've ever been. Fourth call, Ron, the famous divorce lawyer. Mark had already hired him a week ago when he first suspected Sarah's affair. The paperwork was ready. All Mark had to do was give him the go-ahead. Start the process, Mark said as soon as Ron picked up. He didn't sound surprised. Understood. I'll file first thing Monday. You'll have the papers by the afternoon. Perfect. Final call, movers and packers. The next morning, a crew arrived early. Mark walked through the house, pointing out what to pack. Everything that belongs to Sarah. Clothes, shoes, bags, jewelry, all of it. Pack it up and store it in a rental unit. I'll give you the address. As the movers worked, Mark took his time going through her things. Piece by piece, her presence in his home was being erased. And then he found it, her wedding dress. He picked it up carefully, running his fingers over the fabric. This was the dress she had worn on the day she promised to love and honor him. A promise she had broken so easily. He kept it separate, just that one item. Everything else of hers was packed away, removed from his house and his life. 2 days later, 2 couples arrived separately to see the house. Both were nice, well-dressed, and eager. The first couple, Mark and Susan, another Mark and Susan, ironically, were in their late 30s, looking for a bigger home for their growing family. The second, Ethan and Rachel, were newlyweds wanting a fresh start in a nice neighborhood. As Mark showed them around, Susan asked, It's such a beautiful home. If you don't mind me asking, why are you selling it? Mark smiled. Because my wife won't need it anymore. A brief silence. Mark exchanged a glance with Susan, while Ethan raised an eyebrow. Rachel hesitated before asking, "Oh, did something happen?" Mark shrugged. "You could say that." They didn't ask more, though their curiosity was clear. Soon enough, they were distracted by the house itself. Mark gave them space, knowing that in 2 days this house wouldn't be his anymore. And just like that, 2 days later the house was sold. Both couples had made offers, but the other Mark and Susan closed the deal. Mark met them at the property one last time, standing in the empty living room as he handed over the keys. "Make sure to change the locks," he told them. Mark, a practical man, nodded. Already planning to. Mark reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. "Here's a little extra. I covered the locksmith for you." Susan gasped. "Oh, that's really generous of you." Mark smiled. "Consider it my way of making sure that nothing from my past enters this house." With a firm handshake, Mark walked away from what had once been his home, feeling lighter with every step. Later that evening, he met Donald at a bar. Donald was already there, sipping a whiskey when Mark arrived. As soon as Mark sat down, Donald slid an envelope across the table. Mark picked it up, raising an eyebrow. "What's this?" "Call it a little perk," Donald said, smirking. "My commission was good, so I figured I'd kick some back to you. Consider it a divorce fund." Mark let out a short laugh. "And what makes you so sure I'm divorcing her?" Donald leaned back and took another sip of his drink. "The moment you told that couple my wife won't need this house anymore, I knew. She's out of your life." Mark chuckled, shaking his head. "You're a sharp man, Donald." Donald lifted his glass. "To new beginnings." Mark signaled the bartender and ordered 2 drinks. As the glasses were set down, he picked his up, clinking it against Donald's. "To freedom." "Damn, someone's moody." Frank took a sip of his wine and smirked. "You'll get over it." Sarah ignored him. She wanted Mark to call. She wanted to hear his voice, for him to tell her this was all a mistake, that he was waiting for her, that he would take her back. But nothing came. And then, like a whisper in her mind, a small voice spoke. "You wanted this." Sarah froze. "You got this." Her chest tightened. "He just gave you exactly what you wanted." Her hands trembled as she sank onto the edge of the bed. "I didn't need this. I didn't want this. I wanted my husband." The next 4 days were awful. Frank kept her close, but not in the way she longed for. He had sex with her whenever he felt like it. Sarah never protested. She never said no, but she also never felt anything. She tried, she really did. She tried to enjoy it, tried to find the thrill she had convinced herself would be there, but she felt nothing. Each time it was the same. He would take what he wanted, finish, and turn over, falling asleep within minutes. No tenderness, no warmth, no lingering touches or whispered words, just emptiness. Sarah wanted to be held. She wanted to be cherished. But Frank didn't care about that. She felt like someone paid for pleasure, a slave to his desires. She lay beside him in the darkness, staring at the ceiling, her heart hollow. "What have I done to myself?" Finally, the day came to leave. Frank stretched as they walked out of the resort, letting out a satisfied sigh. "Man, that was a relaxing week," he said, grinning. "Best ever." Sarah looked at him, her stomach twisting. "Thank God I'm not married to this man." The flight was quiet, at least for Sarah. Frank dozed off, looking content. She, on the other hand, spent the entire time staring out of the window, her heart heavy. All she could think about was Mark. She wanted to hold him, to bury her face in his chest and just be. She wanted to whisper how much she loved him, how he was the best husband she could have ever asked for. She was willing to beg if she had to. When they landed, Frank and Sarah grabbed their bags and stepped out of the airport. He turned to her, grinning. "I had fun," he said, then smirked. "Now, hopefully, your cuckold husband won't cause any trouble." His words made Sarah flinch. Then he leaned forward, tilting his head to kiss her. Something inside Sarah snapped. She shoved him back, taking a step away. Frank's smirk faltered for a second, then turned into mild amusement. "Come on," he chuckled. "I've done way more than that. I deserve a goodbye kiss." Sarah just stared at him. Then, without a word, she turned and walked away. She heard him scoff behind her, but she didn't care. She found a taxi, threw her bag in, and slid into the seat. As the driver pulled away, her heart pounded faster and faster. And then, as she reached home, she realized how badly she had messed up. Her heart raced as she stepped out of the taxi, her hands shaking as she pulled her suitcase behind her. She took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. "Everything is going to be fine. Mark will be home. I'll explain everything. He'll understand. He has to." Sarah walked up the front steps of their house, her house, feeling a wave of relief. She had memorized every detail of this door, every crack in the wood, the slight creak it made when opened. She reached into her purse and pulled out her keys, slipping one into the lock. It didn't turn. Frowning, she tried again. Maybe I grabbed the wrong key? She jiggled it, twisting harder. Nothing. A chill ran down her spine. She pulled out another key and tried it. Still nothing. Panic started to creep in. Sarah rang the doorbell. Ding dong. The sound was different. She took a step back, suddenly unsure. Was I at the wrong house? No, this was the right house. A few seconds later, the door opened. A young woman stood in the doorway, her expression neutral but slightly wary. She had dark hair pulled into a ponytail and wore yoga pants and an oversized sweatshirt. Yes? She said, tilting her head. How can I help you? Sarah blinked. Her mouth opened, but no words came out at first. She peeked past the woman into the house, her heart pounding. The walls were painted a different color, the furniture wasn't theirs, the pictures on the walls were gone. Everything looked different. A cold, sickening feeling settling in her stomach. I swallowed hard. This is my house. The woman's eyebrows knitted together in confusion. I think you're mistaken, she said. We bought this house a few days ago. We're still moving in. Sarah felt the air rush out of her lungs. Her vision blurred at the edges. No, she whispered. She shook her head violently. No, there must be a mistake. This is my house. Her voice rose as she spoke, desperation creeping in. The woman's face shifted into something more guarded. Who exactly are you? Sarah stared at her, willing this nightmare to end. I'm Sarah Smith, she said, her voice trembling. Mark Smith's wife. For a moment, the woman just looked at her. Then, to Sarah's horror, she smiled slightly, almost like she felt sorry for her. Oh, she said. Mark Smith. Well, he sold this house. My husband and I are the new owners. Sarah's knees nearly buckled. No, she croaked. That's not possible. There must be a mistake. He can't do that. A voice came from inside. Who is it, babe? A man appeared behind the woman, taller, broad-shouldered, with a firm look on his face. He took one glance at Sarah and immediately tensed up. Protective. She says she's Mark Smith's wife, the woman explained, crossing her arms. The man exhaled sharply. Look, lady, I don't know what to tell you, but he sold this house. We have the deed. It's in our name now. His eyes narrowed. Please leave. If you're confused, call your husband. But don't make this a problem, or we'll be forced to call the cops. Cops. The word sent ice through Sarah's veins. She opened her mouth to protest, to beg, but she saw the way they were looking at her, like she was an intruder, because she was. Without another word, she turned and hurried away, her legs shaking as she dragged her suitcase behind her. She didn't stop until she was around the corner, out of sight from the house that was no longer hers. She pressed a hand to her forehead, struggling to breathe. Mark sold the house. He sold their home. He cut her off completely. Her hands trembled as she rummaged through her purse, realizing she had no phone, no way to contact anyone. She needed a new phone. Sarah walked down the street until she found a convenience store. Her body felt numb as she stepped inside and grabbed the cheapest burner phone they had. Her hands barely worked as she fumbled with her wallet, paying for it. Once she had the phone, she walked outside, the cold air biting against her skin. She stared at the screen for a long moment before dialing for a taxi. There was only one place left for her to go. She went to her mother's. She rang the doorbell, and for the first time since coming back, something felt familiar. The chime was the same, soft, slightly delayed, like it always had been in her childhood. A moment later, the door opened. Her mother stood there, looking at her with unreadable eyes. She didn't say anything, just stepped aside, allowing Sarah in. Sarah hesitated for a second before stepping inside, dragging her suitcase behind her. The house smelled the same. Old wooden floors, a hint of lavender from the air freshener her mother always used. But something felt off. She walked to the living room and sank onto the couch. It felt both familiar and foreign at the same time. Her mother didn't sit down. Instead, she pulled out her phone, dialed a number, and pressed it to her ear. She's here. That was all she said before hanging up. Sarah frowned, her stomach twisting uneasily. Who did you call? She asked, her voice softer than she intended. Her mother didn't answer. Instead, she turned and walked into the kitchen. Her silence sliced through the room like a blade, a knot forming in Sarah's chest. Her mother had always been a woman of few words, but this was different. She wasn't just being quiet. She was keeping something from her. Minutes passed, each second stretching endlessly. Then the doorbell rang. Her mother reappeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She glanced at Sarah with that same blank expression. It's for you, she said. Sarah's heart leapt. Mark? She shot up from the couch, nearly tripping over her suitcase in her rush to get to the door. He came. He had to have come. He would fix everything. She didn't care where they lived. She didn't need the house, the money, the furniture. She could build a home anywhere as long as she had him. She yanked the door open, her breath catching in her throat. But it wasn't Mark. A stranger stood there. A man in a dark jacket holding a thick manila envelope. He had a professional, almost rehearsed smile. "Mrs. Sarah Smith?" he asked. Sarah hesitated for a moment before nodding. He handed her the envelope. "You've been served then." Before she could react, he lifted his phone, snapped a quick picture of her holding the envelope, and turned away without another word. Sarah stood frozen in the doorway, the weight of the envelope burning in her hands. No, this couldn't be happening. She turned back toward her mother. Her mother was still standing there. She had known. She had called them. Sarah's fingers trembled as she walked back inside and sank onto the couch. She tore open the envelope, her heart hammering against her ribs. Divorce papers. The words blurred in front of her as her eyes scanned the pages. There were other legal documents, paragraphs of cold, clinical language that she didn't want to understand. Then she saw more papers, printouts of text messages, motel receipts from her credit card, transcripts of conversations, her conversations with Frank. She felt sick. Her vision swam as she flipped through the damning evidence. He had everything. Near the bottom of the stack, there was a small USB drive taped to a final sheet of paper. She peeled it off with shaky fingers and looked at the note. All it said was, "Watch the video in the USB." Sarah sat in front of her mother's laptop, her hands trembling as she plugged in the USB drive. The screen flickered, and a video file popped up. She hesitated for a moment before clicking it. As the video began, her breath hitched. Mark was standing on a hill. Their hill, the same one where he had gotten down on one knee all those years ago, the wind ruffling his hair, his eyes full of love and devotion. The place where she had once said yes to forever. Tears welled up in her eyes before he even spoke. Then he did. "Hey, Sarah," he started, his voice steady, unreadable. "If you're watching this, I guess you already know that you've done what you wanted to do. You got what you wanted." A lump formed in Sarah's throat. "Now it's my turn to do what I want, and more importantly, what I need. I've shared all the text transcripts with your office in Delaware and with Frank's wife." Sarah gasped. Well, it turns out she was overjoyed to get this information. Frank will soon be unemployed and will probably stay that way, at least in this city. He'll be in the poorhouse for a long time. Sarah's heart pounded against her ribs. "Oh, and so will you." She felt her stomach drop. "I want to take this moment to let you know that I have walked away, and in case you feel the urge to contact me, don't bother. I've included the card for my lawyer. You can talk to him." Sarah swallowed hard, her vision blurring as his words sank in. "You threatened me with jail time. You threatened to ruin my reputation." His lips curled into a smirk, one she had never seen on him before. "Well, go ahead. Try it now." She barely had time to process his words before he stepped aside. In his hand, he held a white dress. Sarah gasped. Her wedding dress, the one she had saved for months to buy, the one she had cherished, the one that had symbolized their love, their promises, their forever. "As a symbol of my freedom," he said, his voice calm, deliberate, "I'm going to burn down everything that ever connected me to you." Then, right in front of her eyes, he poured gasoline over the dress. Sarah let out a broken, whispered, "No!" The lighter flicked, the flame danced, and then it caught. The fire roared to life, engulfing the delicate lace, the intricate embroidery, the love and memories stitched into every thread. Sarah could do nothing. She could say nothing. All she could do was just watch. Mark sighed. 7 months. That's how long it took for the courts to finalize his divorce. 7 months of legal battles, depositions, and Sarah trying every trick she could to hold on to whatever she could salvage. But Ron had warned him from the beginning. "We're going to be ruthless. We will not give her an inch to stand on." And they hadn't. The moment Ron played the video of her threatening Mark with false domestic abuse charges, the case was over. The judge saw right through her. Any sympathy she might have had evaporated instantly. Mark didn't look at her during the proceedings. Not once. He refused to give her that satisfaction. She had already taken too much from him. He wasn't about to give her a shred more of his attention. The house was considered a marital asset, so Mark did the fair thing. He split the proceeds, not out of kindness, not out of obligation, but because he wanted it over with. He wanted to walk away knowing he owed her nothing. A few weeks later, she left town, and that was the last Mark heard of Sarah. Now, Mark owned a condo near his office. It was modern, clean, and most importantly, it was his. No shared memories, no ghosts of the past, just him and a fresh start. He started going to the gym. At first, it was just something to fill the time, something to get out of his head. But as the months passed, he started noticing the changes. Stronger, leaner, more confident. He wouldn't call himself a head-turner just yet, but he definitely started catching some glances. Maybe one day, life would give him the love he needed. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories like this. See you next time.